And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. You're tuned in to Tapped Out. Hosted by Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine. Only on the BetQL Network.
Good Saturday evening, wherever you're checking us out on the BetQL Network with my producer, Jake Noaker, and co-host Brendan Tobin down in Miami. I am the sports machine, Sean Levine, in Kansas City, home of the NFL Draft, home of the Super Bowl champions. But first, are you doing all right, man? Because, I was talking to you before the show, and you seem like your voice is half gone. Is that from the Miami Heat winning in 5? Is that from the Florida Panthers still being alive? You doing all right?
Dude, it has been a tough week. I mean, obviously it has been a tough week as far as results, but it's been a tough week on the old throat because I was doing a lot of screaming after the Heat gentlemen swept the Bucks, did a lot of ranting on the show locally down here, and then the Panthers game last night. Holy crap. I mean, that team, that Bruins team is a monster, and the fact that they came back to this situation and forced a Game 7. So, yeah, it's been a bit wild. It's been a little rough on old Tobe's voice.
I'm not going to lie. It kind of upsets me being here in Kansas City because you guys already have, the beach and 2 teams that played in the Final Four. And here we are. I mean, don't tell me the Marlins are about to get good at baseball or anything like that. All right, off the other sports, and let's get into the fighting where tonight in the Octagon, main event from Vegas, we've got Song Yadong taking on Ricky Simone for the gamblers out there. And it is the BetQL Network, so I assume there's a lot of you checking out the show. Plus 100 for Song Yadong. The comeback right now for the favorite, Ricky Simone, at minus 120. And BT, you know Ricky Simone wants to win this fight. Remember, it was a couple of years ago that he lost to Song Yadong's coach and Uriah Faber. That was a bit of a wonky fight, maybe a bit of an early stoppage. Call it what you will. It ended up being a loss in the column for Ricky Simone. Who you got this one tonight?
I'm a big Ricky Simone guy. I feel like if he was in another weight class, there'd probably be a lot more shine on him. It feels like, you're in this one, it's tough to crack through because there's so many prospects and contenders to look at. But I do feel like he flies under the radar, and I do think that I'm leaning towards him getting it done tonight against Yadong.
Yeah, this is a tough one right now. You got Song Yadong essentially at even money, Ricky Simone at minus 120. I think I'm leaning Ricky Simone. And if these guys end up getting into a firefight, which is likely to happen, there's no doubt both these guys can strike. I think I like Ricky Simone a little bit more. So give me Ricky to win as the slight favorite. Let's call it Ricky by KO in the 3rd round. Speaking of knockouts, last Saturday night wasn't the 3rd round. It didn't take that long for Sasha Pavlovich. Wait, is it Sergey or Sasha? Which one's the basketball player? Sergey.
Sasha does, yeah. Sergey. I mean, Sergey, Sergey is tough. Sasha sounds a little bit like could be even meaner, but he is, whatever the hell it is, he's scary.
Okay, well, we'll go with Sergey Pavlovich. 1st round knockout of Curtis Razor Blades last Saturday night. Man, that didn't take too long. So after the show, I knew the fight was coming up, and I went and ordered a sandwich. The place is 5 minutes away from the house. Got the sandwich, came back, and then I got you guys texting me, oh, my God, another knockout. So thank you for that. It feels like Pavlovich isn't that far for fighting for the belt.
Definitely doesn't. Curtis Blades, that's always kind of been his big kryptonite. If you do have that big nuclear power, it doesn't seem like he's been able to withstand it. He has some great wins, but the thing that was scary about Pavlovich last week, it was the jab that really put Blades on wobbly legs. And so you're just like, man, this guy doesn't even look like he tries to put that kind of power on you. And he's already wobbling guys. I saw what he did to Tai Tuivasa cage side. That was super scary. Dude's a monster. I don't know if John Jones is going to stick around to face that guy, but if it comes down to it, I don't know how many more guys right now in the division, maybe your guy Aspinall once he gets healthy, but I don't know how many other guys coming up are as scary as this guy is. And it feels like a title shot for him is inevitable in the near future.
Speaking of title shots, speaking of sitting cage side, coming up next week, in fact, our own producer, Jake Noaker, is going to be Octagon side for UFC 288 live from New Jersey. The main event in that one, Henry Cejudo taking on the Funk Master himself, Aljamain Sterling. We'll break all this down a little bit later on in the show. And fingers crossed, we'll actually have those guys for you on next week's show. We're looking to land a bunch of fighters on next week's card, and there are some good ones. Bryce Mitchell is back. Thug Nasty, Charles
boy right there.
You got Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns. Oh yeah, Twister. Twister's my favorite livestock that's ever existed, and also, not a bad move. All right, let's keep talking a little fighting, and then we'll talk about what happened last Saturday in the ring. Before we do that, tonight, BKFC. BT, are you into it? We got Luke Rockhold in the main event taking on Mike Perry. Right now, Mike Perry's the favorite at minus 190. Luke Rockhold, the underdog at plus 160. Here's the thing. I thought Luke Rockhold looked right last time out against Paulo Costa. Like he didn't look like he was done. He told us he was done. And then a few minutes later, he said, okay, I think I'm going to come back and fight again. It happens all the time in our sport. That being said, I think Mike Perry's built for bare knuckle. I've always thought that he was built for bare knuckle, right? Like if it's not going to be a street brawl or a bar fight, he's probably better doing this than getting in the cage with 4-ounce gloves or doing any sort of real boxing. So I like Mike Perry, and I'm willing to pay the minus 190 tonight. Are you? And are you watching?
Oh, I'm definitely watching. I'm honestly a little bit more interested in this tonight than the UFC, just because some of the names involved. And that's kind of what BKFC harbors in, is those former UFC guys, one last or a couple last, rides in the spotlight and see who's actually good at this. But you're right. As a former voter of the bare knuckle rankings, these guys who are a little bit wild, they just translate to the sport better. I feel like Luke Rockhold, his striking is a little bit too pretty to translate. Maybe he catches something crazy, but the thing with bare knuckle is you want to throw a lot, you want to be aggressive. The guys who could do that usually flourish. So I agree with you. I think Mike Perry is built for this. If they could carve out a star fighter for this, he seems like the type of guy that would be great. And I like him tonight against Luke Rockhold.
Why'd they take away your vote?
I voluntarily stepped away. I couldn't keep up with the dude. It was too many fights. I was just like, look, I got to be honest with you. I got to be honest with you. I have like all this stuff going on, and I'm not. I just honest with them. Look, I'm not watching you guys every Friday night. It feels unfair that you have me ranking this stuff. They're like,
honesty is always the best policy, or sometimes. That's Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine, Jake Noaker, and coming up in a little bit, Andrew Gombas, pro MMA bettor, is going to join us. We'll talk to him, and we'll figure out how to make some money on tonight's event, and then also, of course, next week, UFC 288. One more fight I want to talk about before we get to last week's boxing match between Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. Chad Mendez fights tonight against Eddie Alvarez. You give me Eddie Alvarez underdog money, especially a guy who's got good hands. I'll take it, even if it is against Money Mendez at plus 120 tonight. Which way are you playing it?
I would also say that's good value on Eddie Alvarez. The two things I will say about bare knuckle that are I always will lean on a guy who has experience in doing it because it is a different sport. Although Eddie Alvarez does seem like the type of style that would be very good at it. I will say I don't think I've seen any former UFC guy look as good in their bare knuckle debut as Chad Mendez did. And I'm actually like a little disappointed that he's not sticking around in the sport that long. It sounds like this might be his last time, because he looked unbelievable when he stepped inside the squared circle. So I'm leading Money Mendez tonight because he looked really, really impressive in his debut. And I do think it's tough to go up against a guy with a little bit of experience in a new sport.
I want to know how impressive you thought Tank Davis looked last Saturday night against Ryan Garcia. So Tank came out in his press conference earlier in the week, and he said that he was going to knock him out in round 7. And I guess technically TKO round 7. So, you can call him something because he predicts these things. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But now that we've had a week to kind of regurgitate what we saw, and maybe I'm bitter. Maybe I'm just a bitter man who lost his bet, because you and I both had a little bit of coin on Tank by decision. And I got to tell you, man, it really felt like it was heading that way. And I get it. It's not a UFC fight where it's 3 or 5 rounds. We were only halfway through the fight. So there were a lot of things that could have happened. But based on the fact that it was going, and even when Ryan Garcia got knocked down, he said afterwards, and my eyes told me that he wasn't really hurt. He just got knocked down. So if that was to happen 1 or 2 more times, what I'm trying to tell you is I think that fight was going to go the distance. Ultimately, he took the liver shot. He took the knee. How do you see it now? Because I guess what frustrated me, and again, this is me just being a bitter man losing my money. It looked like Ryan Garcia was about to get up, and then he didn't. And then in the post-fight press conference, he was asked about it, and he really didn't have anything to say. Am I just a bitter old man who lost his money? How did you see that fight?
I mean, are you trying to allege that Ryan quit? You thought that he could have gotten up, he just didn't want anymore? Is that what you're kind of alluding? Because like
Dude, I'm not saying that. He kind of said that.
Yeah,
He
you're
said
not
that.
alone
Like,
in that.
it would have been easy. It would have been easy enough for him to say after the fight, yo, when you take those liver shots, sometimes it puts you out for 10 seconds, sometimes it puts you out for a minute, and I just couldn't get up. He didn't say that. He basically said, yeah, I could. It sounded like he was about to say I could have got up, but then he stopped himself. So I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just mad.
I got you. Well, and listen, you're not alone. Him alluding to it. Andy Ruiz, his former teammate in the Canelo camp, he a former heavyweight champion. He said that he quit. Gervonta Davis kind of said it. Like, listen, I just don't think you want it anymore. And I don't disagree with that. I think it was a good shot by Tank. I don't think it was like a crippling shot by Tank. That being said, Tank dominated that fight. If it did go on, it was probably going to be like a 10-2 decision outside of some colossal mistake and some home run hit. Great. So I think for me, the thing I was most impressed with Tank is that I think he just completely outclassed Ryan from every standpoint. As soon as Ryan got a little bit aggressive, the first mistake that he made, Tank put him on the canvas. And I think that the fact that happened so early in the fight really set the tone for him either not wanting to go through that pain of the body shot to get up, or the fact that it got finished so early. I thought that it was going to take Tank a little bit longer to send him to the canvas. And the fact that he did so early, really just showed that Ryan's not on his level and that he is probably not for that weight class, but he also, I don't know, will ever be quite the boxer that Gervonta is. And I do think that Gervonta Davis has proven himself on the big stage that, people don't want to be in there with him. This happened with Hector Luis Garcia, his last fight out too, where, it wasn't a knockout. He hit him in the head, and then his opponent said, I can't see, and didn't want to keep going on. And sometimes guys just go in rounds like this. They just feel beat, overwhelmed, going in a guy who's just way more skilled than him. Lomachenko had a little bit of a run like this 4 or 5 years ago, and I just think Tank's on that kind of on a heater right now.
I do think the nice thing about it is that we got to see both guys go at it young and in their prime, and now we'll see which direction it takes them, which I guess, look, man, we've needed this for a while as fight fans, especially as boxing fans, where the last few years, this YouTube stuff's gotten out of control. And say what you will about it. Maybe you enjoy it, maybe you don't, maybe you bet on it, whatever, but the atmosphere felt completely different. Like it finally felt like a real big time, showtime, Las Vegas, main event, in their prime boxing match. Bro, you tell me, when's the last time we had that feeling?
It's been a while, and getting the reports this week that it did, well over 1 million, 1.2 to 1.4, the numbers that are out there. The fact that somebody not named Canelo or Floyd is finally doing some numbers like that, hopefully will be an inspiration to the younger generation of fighter to do this. Will not have something like a Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, where there's a standoff for 4 years before it's, already cooled off and you kind of piss off the fans. So I think it's huge. It really, I'm with you. The YouTube boxing has gotten so stale. I don't care. It's not good. It's not a good product. We've already seen the peak of it. And I think it was, Jake Paul knocking out Tyron Woodley the way that he did. But even up to that, it wasn't that entertaining a fight. I'm not that into him fighting Nate Diaz. Of course, we'll watch it. We'll cover it on the show. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. But it's just not as good. Like you saw this past weekend what elite boxing looks like and what elite entertainment looks like. And, those guys, credit for them. I mean, 2 counter punches it could have made for a boring fight. They had a really fun fight. Ryan kind of went forward a little bit in that second round. It was probably a mistake, but he thought that he could hurt Tank a little bit. But Tank is too slick and made him pay for it.
And now King Ryan moves up a weight class, so I don't know if we're going to see that again. Who knows, because we're talking about a 24-year-old and a 28-year-old fighter here. That being said, what's next for Tank Davis? Because our knock on him this entire time is, yeah, he's a superstar. Yeah, he's fun to watch, but he hasn't really fought anybody. Well, now he has, so where does he go from here?
It's a good question. Just simply because I don't think there is an easy answer right now. There's a lot of buzz about him fighting Shakur Stevenson. Feels too young, still under contract with Top Rank, so I find that to be unlikely. I would say coming up May 20th, we have Devin Haney versus Vasily Lomachenko for all the belts at that weight class. So I would say the winner of that fight is the most likely to get the next shot at Tank, assuming he wants that. I mean, he's kind of shown business-wise he's bigger than the belts, but I think it would be really cool that one of the biggest fights would be boxing's new big star going for all the championships. I think it'd be cool to have a collision course of that.
I do definitely think that he is the face of boxing now. That was a lot of the conversation going in. It's obviously not Ryan Garcia. Tyson Fury's getting old. Nobody cares about these other heavyweights. Canelo's almost out the door. Same thing with Triple G. So I think it's actually pretty obvious. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine. We'll keep talking fighting up next. Let's try to make some money. Bring on pro MMA bettor Andrew Gombis. You're locked into the BetQL Network.